Okay, so the format for this evening is pretty informal. Amy Haimerl is here to speak with you about her new book, which is really exciting. After Amy speaks, we'll take a few questions, and then we will open it up for open storytelling. So a few of you signed up when you came in the door, and what I will do is just go in order, and I'll let you know who's first and then who's on deck, and then we'll roll for like 5 minutes at a time on those stories. If while you're listening to people's stories, you're inspired to tell your own story, just see me, I'll have the clipboard, and we'll see what we can do. So without further ado, I want to introduce Amy Haimerl, who is the author of the forthcoming memoir, Detroit Hustle, about her experience moving to Detroit and rehabbing a historic home with no plumbing, electrical, or heat. I'm sure many of us have been there. Some reviewers say the story is charmingly told, while others say it's filled with practical advice on how to build a home and a community in a new city. I will note again that books are for sale tonight on the back table, so see, is Susan still here? See Susan. Hi, Susan, if you'd like to purchase a copy. Amy is a teacher of journalism at Michigan State University and covers entrepreneurship and urban policy for Fortune, Reuters, and the New York Times. She lives in Detroit with her husband Carl, her pit bull Maddie, and now a new pit bull, Bobian, so sweet, and a stray cat Jack, who is the boss of them all. Please welcome Amy.
Thank you so much for being here. So I brought some pictures as well, because I feel like my book doesn't have any pictures, and really what we all care about are the images. Except that they were already just there. Okay. So, let's see, if you're facing it, so the left-hand side is our house when we bought it. Most of the windows, there are 42 of them, were either missing or boarded over. The house on the right is it about a year ago, so it's come a little bit further since then from the exterior perspective. We still don't have the shutters up because my husband, I think, is going to be scraping the paint off of those shutters until we die. It's just a slow and ongoing process. But we have windows. One of the things that I talk about in my book is dentals. How many of us in here know what dentals are? Dentals, right? We know what dentals are. So dentals are the white boxes up at the top of the roof line that basically look like teeth. Yeah, they don't do anything, but they're really expensive. So we did not think we were going to have to replace the roof when we bought the house. Our inspection said the roof was fine. However, the city's pre-inspection report disagreed, and so when the city says you do it, you have to do it. So we wound up having to put an entirely new roof on, and as part of doing that, we discovered exactly how bad the eaves were. They were rotting out, termite infested. Those dentals were 100-year-old cedar that were disintegrating. Some you could like touch and they would just fall apart. So we had to have 90, I believe it was 97 of them remilled from fresh cut cedar, painted and installed. So I always look at Matilda as my husband has named her. This is Matilda. And I'm like, you have one nice hat, lady. You better like it. Because like that was an expensive hat. But yeah, so my name again is Amy Haimerl, and my husband and I did move here from Brooklyn. Please don't hiss, I'm really sorry. We are one of the many who were able to come here. I got a fellowship at the University of Michigan that brought us out here, and at the end of that year, we made the choice to come to Detroit rather than going back to Brooklyn. It was right after Hurricane Sandy had hit. Our neighborhood back home, Red Hook, was devastated. We'd started thinking about, we had only been married 3 weeks when we moved to Michigan together, and so our year in Ann Arbor was sort of our honeymoon, and we started thinking about what do we want for our life. And as we'd spent time here in Detroit, primarily at PJ's Lager House, so before there was Brick and Bean, there was PJ's Lager House, and the number of times we sat there, and PJ and his wife Donna welcomed us into that community. The people there were really gracious and wonderful, and they heard our stories, that we felt like this was a place that we could call home. It had the same feeling as our neighborhood of Red Hook, Brooklyn, which is a neighborhood of about 10,000 people, 8,000 of whom live in public housing. It's isolated, there's a lot of poverty, there is a lot of beauty and a lot of community spirit and a lot of togetherness in that struggle. It's been abandoned and forgotten. There's no public transportation. The city keeps trying to put garbage transfer stations there. So, and in that sort of roughness, an incredible community had risen up. And so as we were coming to Detroit, we felt the spirit of that community as well, and that maybe we could be a part of it and make our little way here as we decided to figure out who we were going to be as a married couple together. So we find Matilda. So she was not even on the market. I went to an Open Cities event, which if you don't know, that's the Build Institute, so which does a lot of small business support. I was going to be starting my job at Crane's Detroit Business, so I went there as like I get to know some of the small business owners in town. And I meet this woman, April Boyle, and she says, I hear you're moving here and I hear you're looking for a house. I was like, what is this place? How do you know this already? And she's like, I have one for you. And I was like, oh, okay. And Carl and I, my husband, had already looked at a couple of homes on the market. We were working with Ryan Cooley. We were thinking we wanted not a big rehab project, right? So even though I grew up poor, basically just straight up poor white trash. I mean, I grew up in a trailer, so I can own that. I'm the only person in my family to go to college. My parents like to joke that, you know, they sent me in with more skills than I actually came out with, because I can't do anything. I can barely like wield a hammer. I can't hang a shelf. Like I am New York style, like handy, which is not good. And my husband's even less so. So we were thinking like, you know, we can do a small project. You know, it's Detroit. We'll buy something we can at least live in, has heat, power, water, and we can spend a lifetime sort of making it ours. We can learn these projects as we go. I will teach myself how to do plumbing. I will teach myself how to do electrical. And notice it's I. Like my husband would even say, like, yes, that's going to be you, not me. And so everything we'd seen to that point was a huge project. Like, you know, walking in, we looked at a duplex on Vinewood that I fell in love with, old Victorian, so gorgeous, all the bones, all the reasons we all buy these houses, because we see the potential, so the potential. And like with the drug holes knocked through and like the ceiling collapsing in, and the other duplex, like half a wall missing, and thankfully Carl was like, no, we're not gonna do that. So we looked at, and the arrogance and the naivete of that time is we did look at a house here in Corktown. Dave Mancini owns it now. And I sometimes curse Dave Mancini's name, because when I bought it, I was like, when he bought it, he bought it, I looked at it and I was like, $125,000. Who spends $125,000 on a house in Detroit? If only I had spent $125,000 on a house in Detroit. It was already rehabbed, it was completely done. But that was the arrogance and naivete I was coming to Detroit with at that time, because it was still the message that everywhere else in the country is getting, is like, you can buy everything for cheap here. And nobody talks about, you can buy it for cheap. The cost of acquisition isn't the problem, it's the cost of improvement. So we would soon learn. So April says, I've got this house for you. My brother-in-law has one across the street from him. Here's Jim Boyle's phone number. So then I am talking to this gentleman, Jim Boyle, who I don't know who this is going to be yet. And Jim Boyle gives me the number of this woman in Colorado, in Boulder, Colorado, which is 15 minutes outside of my hometown of Golden, Colorado. And I'm thinking, well, this is weird, okay. But I'm too shy to call her. So, because even though I'm a reporter, I really hate the phone. I hate if it rings, I hate if you want to talk to me on it. I'm all about the email. But I don't have her email. So I find her on Facebook, and I pay $1 to Facebook inbox her, because at that time, if you don't know somebody, the message would go to like the anonymous alternate inbox, and so I paid the $1 to go to her real inbox, because that's how much I hate the phone. And like an hour later, we're, you know, having an email conversation, and once I know you, I'm totally good on the phone, and then I feel less awkward. So we're talking on the phone, and she's like, look, there are keys on the lockbox. Go and look at it. Go to Van Dyke Place and tell me what you think about it. So we drive from Ann Arbor to Van Dyke Place, and we see the Dell sign. It's very ubiquitous here in Detroit. We see this, and we start walking through it. Can you guys hear me without the mic? Because I used to actually run the morning news meeting for CNN, so I'm pretty good at projection. So we start walking through it. We see this. You know, it's a blustery spring day about like this. We go in, it's late afternoon, and it's dark, it's dank, it's moldy. You know, in a few places I can see a little bit of sunshine, and like I can see the dust motes dancing in the street. You know, the ceiling is collapsing in, the south wall is, all the stucco is sliding off. There is no bathtub, there is no toilet, there is no sink, there is no kitchen appliances. There is no plumbing, there is no heating, there is no electrical. What there is a rolling office chair and a Mountain Dew bottle filled with pee. And a raccoon. Those are the three things that I have to greet me in this house. Literally, it has been scrapped. There's not a radiator, there's not a heating system. There is literally nothing. It is a pile of bricks with character. That's it. And somehow Carl and I go, this is the one we should do. Totally like just a really easy, like cosmetic project. We'll just like clean up the kitchen and it'll be fine. But we're walking up the stairs and somehow we can feel it. Somehow we describe it, especially in the book, because the book is a love story. The book is a love story of me in Van Dyke Place, me and Matilda, me and my husband, me in Detroit, me and my father. It's a love story of a lot of things. And the reason it's a love story is I can tell you that I didn't know, you don't know who's going to be the one. You don't know the one you're going to fall in love with until you just do. And Matilda just was. She was just the right one. So we walk outside, we're looking at each other, like knowing we're crazy and expecting the other one to like be the responsible, sensible one. And I'm usually the leap then look, and Carl is the more thoughtful, responsible, but neither of us were doing that. And as we're walking outside, a street light comes on. Aww. Right outside the window. So in a city that I know has less than half of its street lights working, this one like turns on, like, hello. And in that, I see this giant white cat walk across the roof of the house, like an omen. That giant white cat now lives in my house and bosses me around. The cat literally is the boss of me. But at the time, I was like, it's a sign, the cat. And then oil. Right, because like, what am I? Like, it's like under the Tuscan sun, and I'm Frances Mays looking for a sign. I'm like, signs everywhere. And then like, Jim Boyle comes walking across the street, and he's like, hi, I'm Jim. And I'm like, oh, hi. And he's like, what are your intentions? And like, there's very clear that like, what our intentions best be. Because poor Jim, we don't know this yet, but poor Jim's been fighting this house back, along with all of my neighbors who are here, for like a decade. Bad renters, bad owner in Florida who'd left it and abandoned it, trying to board it up, trying to keep them, the grass cut. It was their albatross around their neck, and they did not want another one. They wanted somebody who was going to come here and make it their home and really invest in it. And I also think they saw the giant B for Brooklyn on our foreheads and were like, idiots, come on, you guys, we'll do this. And Jim says, okay. We say, yeah, we're thinking about buying it, but no, not to rent, not for anything, like just for us. And he says, it's going to be okay. My wife and I did this like 15 years ago. You'll be great. I never looked at his hands. Had I looked at his hands, as his wife Mary will tell me, I would have noticed those hands have never in their life done construction. Like, thank you, Jim Boyle. So we get Matilda. So we buy Matilda for $35,000 cash. To do this, come back. The Dell sign. To do that, we don't have any money. I mean, again, I grew up poor. Carl grew up middle class. So he at least was smart enough to have retirement savings. Like, he'd been smartly saving. I had done it for a little while. So we cashed out my 401k, which gave us enough to buy the house. And then I thought we'd be able to get a mortgage or construction loan or something. How do we make this come back? Okay, well, there's my budget. Anybody want to see my budget? So we figured we'd be able to do that, and quickly discovered that there are not a lot of mortgages being written in Detroit, not because of credit, but as we can probably all attest, because of appraisal values. And when we talked to the banks, they were like, what kind of unicorns and dancing monkeys are you going to bring to make this house worth anywhere near what it's going to take to actually rehab it? So we were turned down. The best thing we were told was Talmer Bank said, look, if you guys can put up the cash and get it done, you can come back to us and we'll talk about doing a cash out refi. So with that like little glimmer, we're like, okay, we can totally do this. We cash out my husband's 401k. So, the little bit of stability we have, to sort of look like I've grown up and finally made it to the middle class, like that's gone. 110,000 we pull out of that, and I think, brilliant, we're solid, we got this. So far from got this. So as the New York Times reported this morning, and I'm sure many of you will see it, so I will just do the top line number for you now because I'm getting all the hate emails already. We have $400,000 into this house.
Oh my God.
$400,000. I could not have guessed when we started that that's where we would wind up at. I thought the 100,000, I mean, who doesn't think 100,000 is more than enough? But we bought a project that wasn't just sort of outside of our realm, it was completely outside of our realm for people who are not capable of doing the work themselves. And a project where you can't learn to do it easily. We couldn't live in it. It was not move-in ready. We had dogs, we had cats, we had a grand piano. We moved all of our stuff into storage, and we hired contractors. And I will tell you that the best decision I've made in this entire process was hiring two gentlemen named Calvin and Christian Garfield, who are Detroit contractors. Cal was a 20-year city building inspector. It's his son, Christian, who after college, he was in high finance in Boston and decided he hated that life and moved back to Detroit to start a construction firm with his dad. Cal grew up here, Christian grew up here, they still live in Grandmont Rosedale, and they have been the joy of my life every single day of working with them. So if anybody else has a contractor that they're still excited to have show up in their house every day, still has keys after the project's done, still go to each other's birthday parties, tell me about it, because mine kind of came every day for 2.5 years. On time, never missed, like clockwork. High quality work, I will not lie. They are not the cheapest, but I am a contractor's daughter by damn. And I watched too many people treat my father like he didn't deserve to feed his family because they had some dream and they felt like he owed it to them to do it on the cheap. And I'm a contractor's daughter and I would not do that to another man. I would not keep another man from feeding his family. Now that doesn't mean I think I gotta spend a fortune, but I feel like we can do good quality at fair prices, and that's what I ask. And that's what my daddy taught me about. Was you expect high quality for fair prices, and you both pay and you both come out, and you both come out friends at the end. So to do that, the $100,000 from our 401k, my grandparents loaned us $40,000 at 1.5% interest. It was the first and only time I've ever been able to ask my family for money. My parents divorced right before this started, and the business my father had built over 30 years, I had to sell with my brother at an auction for pennies on the dollar, because let me tell you, big tractors, heavy yellow iron at the end of the recession is going for pennies because everybody's having to liquidate. So my dad comes out with about $100,000 to show for his entire life. That's his retirement, and he says, "Girl, I can give you 75 as a loan. I trust you. You got this. You'll pay it back." And I cried. When I went to college where I did because it was the only place I could go on scholarship, and my parents didn't have money. If I got to go to college, it was because I paid for it, not because mom and dad had that kind of resource. So to be able to actually have to go to my family and be able to ask them now was a really huge thing. So I talk about the $400,000 for two reasons. One, because I want people to understand what it can take to do it here. Not that all projects are going to be like this. Not that everybody will have to or need to do it the way that we did. But that it is the cost of improvement, not the cost of acquisition, and we should be forthcoming about that so more people don't get caught up in something that they can't handle. But I also talk about it because in my book, there's this scene when I'm in my early 20s and I'm hustling. I've got a partner at that time that he's got his own construction business. I'm the editor of the paper at night, and during the day. By night, I'm working in his firm. By weekends, we're running illegal raves out of a warehouse space we've got to try to make the money. And I just remember driving through this really kind of newly nice neighborhood in Denver at dusk and looking through a window at this family sitting there eating dinner and thinking about what their life must be like, and I would love to have that life, even though I've made all the choices and I take full responsibility for where I'm at. But gosh, to just have that life in the window, and now I have that life in the window. People look at our house and look at us through that window and think, all of these things that it must mean about us because we have this house and because we were able to spend this kind of money. But it's very rare, and so part of my book is telling the story of what it took to put that kind of money together. I still have 29% interest credit cards out. I still have $75,000 of personal loans. I still owe Cal and Christian money. The one thing that happened was in November of 2014, we finally got done close enough that we could go to a bank and we could get an appraisal. And we went to Talmer Bank, and I will tell all of you that you should go to Talmer Bank. And I will tell you that there's actually a real technical reason, and I won't bore you with all of it, but they can get appraisals in a way that a lot of other banks can't because it has to do with Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and many things the personal finance journalist and me can explain. And we went to them, and they called the appraiser, and he came, and we got a $300,000 appraisal. It was the largest appraisal the West Village had seen in a very long time, and it was incredibly difficult to get because there weren't comps in the neighborhood. Most appraisers looked at the house and said, you'll be lucky to get $170 on a $400,000 investment. Because all they could say was your closest comps within 2 miles that are similar, that's the best you're going to do. So to get a real appraiser who could actually look at this, look at the house, understand Detroit, know where we were at, look at the quality, look at the potential, and actually value it for that was huge. Because it meant we could then get a $240,000 mortgage. So basically, you know, if you do a mortgage up front, you have to usually come up 20% down. Well, if you do it at the end, you have to leave them 20%. So we get a $240,000 mortgage at 4% interest. You know, so great. So now I was able to pay my father off. I was able to pay off our $55,000 tax bill because I didn't, even though I know better, I did not actually save money for the penalties that come with cashing out your 401k. Do not cash out your 401k. The personal finance editor in me would just like to tell you all, don't do it. Do as I say, do not do as I do. But we love it. So we're underwater, that's okay. This is a long-term plan for us. I cannot speak for a lot of you who are doing it yourself. I respect that so wholeheartedly. I always talk about the cost of foregone wages and putting those calculations into what it actually costs you to do it. You think it's just the materials when you're doing it yourself, but it's also the cost of foregone wages of what you could be earning if you were spending it either working for yourself or working for an employer. So don't forget to tally that in. It starts to actually show you the real cost of rehab. So, okay, we have pictures back. Yay! Okay, so so you've seen the exterior. Okay, so on the left it's dark, so that's the bathroom. When we bought it, it was a giant hole to the basement. We were able to save the tile on the floor, but not the god-awful pink. Sorry. You know, and so we've got, you know, there's the bathroom. That's the guest bathroom. And we have next. This is the front door. So when we bought the house, on the left, the door was nailed shut, and somebody had taken the wrong end of a hammer to it and just beaten it to death. So it wouldn't open. We looked at buying just sort of another door to put in its place. I called salvage yards from here to Chicago and New York looking for a 42-inch wide door for months to no avail. So we wound up having to take that, have it stripped, and have it cleaned up, which was no small feat. We have time or money. But if you see the little people, the little breast people, our brilliant contractors actually went to the original company that made it and had them send a new one because the spyglass was broken. So those are the kinds of things that they do. So that's the entryway. This is the top of the stairs going to the second floor. So, you know, it's closet, bathroom. Now this is it finished. You see the doors and the woodwork? So some of you probably heard about a year and a half ago the church that burned down in Woodward. First Unitarian. That's from First Unitarian. So we were, before it burned down, our contractors had taken us there because the owner was intending to demolish the church. And so he said, sure, take the door, take whatever you want. So I think we spent $3,000 on 23 interior doors and all of this like woodwork that was originally the balcony. Not knowing what we were going to do in a couple of pews and brought it in, but I knew we needed doors, and every time I went to Home Depot, I hated the doors, and they were still going to be like $200 a pop by the time you bought, you know, all the jams and everything. And so we bought these thinking, oh, that'll be great, but Again, the cost of taking doors that are like 10 feet tall and making them 8 feet tall and fit specific spaces, it was a year-long project to put all this trim in. But I think it's one of the most special things of the house. It's definitely a luxury and not a need. It definitely put the price tags much higher. But the history and the connection that it brings for us to Detroit, and knowing that that church still lives on in some way, doesn't make sense from a financial perspective, but for us it made sense from an emotional perspective. And I think all of us standing here probably get that these houses don't always make financial sense. That's not always why we do them. It would certainly be cheaper and easier to buy elsewhere. This is the master bedroom. So the master bedroom used to sort of open up onto a sunroom. The sunroom was actually peeling off the back of the house. We had to rebuild the entire south wall, so from scratch. So part of $400,000 includes like rebuilding a house inside only 3 walls and no roof. So this is our room now. You know, it's actually one of the few rooms that's painted. It's got the doors. You can see the little sunroom now. They made me lovely shelves that my shoes live on. That was a surprise from the contractors as I thank you and we love you, and they made me this beautiful space. The kitchen. So this is, you know, this is the chandelier. This is sort of the kitchen. The big long table you see, that was actually architectural salvage. It's an old baker's table from the 1950s that we found buried in a corner for like $100. So it's sort of the centerpiece. But you can see we're still also in process, because you'll see those, like, you know, metal, not so nice sawhorses holding it up from Home Depot. Someday we hope to have the Nordine brothers actually make us a real sort of stand for it, but that's way down the line. So this is on the right, that's the kitchen originally, and this is the kitchen again looking from the other direction. The kitchen was originally 5 small rooms. I couldn't figure out where a refrigerator would have gone. I didn't know how it worked. There was a weird, that little like doorway right to the left sort of went out and then had like a little hole that went into another room that you could sort of maybe pass cocktails. Maybe there was a cocktail passing going on. This is one of the guest rooms, the state they were in. Most of the floors had pretty big holes in them, so one of the expenses was we kept the original ribbon oak flooring, but we took pieces from other parts of the house that were going to get covered up with cabinets and patched it. That turns out to be a lot of work and not so cheap. So I don't think we would have saved much by ripping it all out and replacing it, so I certainly am glad we went ahead and just refinished the floors because they're gorgeous, but the repair work was pretty significant. And this also was my first painting job, so I painted this room. I'm very proud of that. Our contractor is an excellent painter, and he came in though and was like, and I didn't actually take the painter's tape down off the ceiling until a good girlfriend of mine was here from LA a couple of months ago, and we came back from a party and she was maybe a little drunk and decided that right then she was going to deal with that. So she took it down and like cleaned up the ceiling where I couldn't seem to manage to get the roller to not put blue streaks on them. So that's sort of, you know, some of it. We've got budgets here if anybody's interested in what things cost. I'm always happy to talk about that, just because I think it's important for us to be frank with each other. As much as coming from poverty, I don't like to talk about money, but I feel like we do so much better if we do and at least can put baselines on things. So it's not because I'm bragging about spending the $400,000. If I were, that would be stupid. I was stupid for doing it. I'm glad I did it, but it's just so we can talk about what these things are and go in with greater knowledge and maybe make better decisions than I have. I hope that this was fun. I love living on Van Dyke Place. I think I have the best block in the city. But that's one of the things I love about Detroit, is that everyone in this room would probably say they live on the best block in Detroit. And so thank you for Detroit for welcoming me and my husband Carl with open arms, letting us do this project, being here to support us through it. PJ's Lager House was our place. I cannot speak highly enough of PJ's. Thank you for being here, Donna. It's not because Donna's here, but because PJ and Donna, who are in the book a lot, were our people who, when I walked into that bar a couple of times, I think after looking for tile, and I took my wedding rings off, I just don't have them on right now, I don't know why. But I literally took them off and slammed them on the bar at PJ's and was like, if you want that tile, we are done. Like, I cannot even be married to you. That's the tile you want. And thankfully at this point, Carl had sort of gotten that I can be a little mercurial at times and was like, how about we just get you a bullet rye and find PJ? I mean, there was a little like, PJ will fix this, fine, PJ. And with stories, just like we share here, PJ and Donna shared their stories, other people at that bar shared their stories with us, made us feel better as we were going through it. The number of people who said, like, it's gonna be okay, even if you just have to like wash your dishes with like borax and water out on the lawn. You'll figure it out, and Detroit will come together around you and make it happen. So Detroit Hustle is the story of us coming together and making it happen, both about the story of the city and us making our way in it and rehabbing this house and sort of trying to explain to the rest of the world what we see in Detroit, even if they don't. So thank you.
Let's do a few minutes of questions. We are running a little behind on the schedule. No, it's not your fault. We had a tour, we had food tabling, it's fine. Let's do can we do 3 questions? Does that sound okay, Victoria? Let's do 3 questions, and then if you want to casually chat with Amy afterward, I'm sure she'll hang out for a little bit. Any questions? Somebody.
You say about volunteering or the conference. If you do that, will other people volunteer to help you do something?
That has been, so I think the question is, if I volunteer for other projects, have other people volunteered to help us? And the answer is yes. We could not have done, even though we paid contractors, that still a significant part of this was our neighbors and our neighborhood. A random pit bull just wandered into our backyard last month, and so we needed a fence. And God bless our neighbor Noah, had experience building fences, so within a week we had an amazing new basket leaf fence installed so that Bo couldn't get out of the backyard. Our other dog, Natty, is a rug. She doesn't really move. So the neighbors have been incredibly helpful in emotional support and in actual time, and I try to do the best I can to help others with my skills. So for Cal and Christian, our contractors, they didn't even have a website. So the Detroit News ran a lovely story on our house, and before it came out, I had to build Cal and Christian a website, because I was like, guys, somebody has to be able to find you.
Yeah.
So they could maybe hire you. It'd be awesome.
Whole other problem for communities. Yeah. Contractor websites.
What was that? Oh, yes, I did. So, and another very special thing is that Marcia Music's poem makes it in about her, it's the Gentrification Blues poem, and it is in my book. She allowed me graciously to quote from it fairly extensively.
Just say hi.
Just say hi. Because it was one of the most touching things I'd read about gentrification. It meant a lot to me because as I'm here and can recognize myself as a gentrifier here, I have to watch my family back in Colorado being gentrified as my hometown becomes incredibly wealthy and million-dollar condos are lining the main street and their muddy boots and rumbling mufflers and the signs and smells of work are no longer welcome. And so I have to walk through this world sort of on both sides of that and trying to acknowledge it, and Marcia's beautiful poem was really instrumental in me figuring out and talking about that in the book. So the book isn't all just home renovation. It is me trying to deal with gentrification, class issues, it's whiteness in Detroit and what that means, and hopefully doing it in the most sensitive and thoughtful ways, although I'm sure I'm going to make a lot of people angry. I hope not. I hope I'm thoughtful, and I hope that you all enjoy it.
Sweet.
Amy, do you have time to sign book copies of the book?
I do. I'm happy to sign copies. Just going to get out of the garret.
Amy, was there ever a point? was there ever a point that you got to like a certain amount poured into it, money-wise, emotionally, that you were just like, man, I know that the market's changed since we bought this house. We could probably get a little bit more money than we should at this point, just because of speculation. Maybe we should try to flip it in that sense. Or were you all in from the day you walked through?
So we were we spent a lot of time second guessing before we actually bought it. Like, we spent about 3 weeks sort of flip-flopping about whether to do it, but once we made that decision, we were all in from the get-go. Maybe that was naivete, maybe that was reality, that even though the market still, this was 2013, so we're still pre-bankruptcy. So there was at no point did we think we could sell it for even what we'd already bought it for and put in it at that point. When I wrote my first $98,000 check, that was sort of the moment where I was like, I don't even have a sense of money anymore. I'm like, okay, so we need this. It's only like $1,200. Like, sure. And so I think that is one of the struggles, that at a certain point the project accelerated beyond all of our control. That $98,000 check was draw 5 of 6 draws that I paid. And the next draw 6 I didn't get until a year later. So our contractors will actually tell you that it got away from them too. It was a labor of love for them, that this project, they stopped building, they stopped kind of keeping track of some hours, because we were just sort of marching forth into the oblivion of financial decay together. And then when we sort of tallied it all up at the end, we were like, how did that happen? And so they gave us a big discount on the bill too, and certain, like, wrote off certain things, and we're going to be paying them on some stuff over time. But I think instead of thinking we could ever flip it, it was the opposite of just sort of being in so deep that you're like, I don't know. That's just how we do in Detroit. Like, my best friend in New York is like, you've done what? Why? Okay. She was like, you know, I bought my, because she has a 2-bedroom condo in downtown Brooklyn that she paid $650,000 for in 2009. And she just refied, and so her new appraisal is $1.2 million. And she's like, and yet, like, I was like, yeah, but you get to live off my cocktail, like off my stories for cocktail parties, so I think I should get some royalties. Yeah. Also, like, everybody in her condo is annoying as all get out, and like complain about weird things like, what color is the like, I don't like this shade of blue on the common space walls, and can we, like, we need better looking trash cans in the recycling room, and every time she calls me and tells me those stories, I'm like, so can I just institute a Detroit tax? And it's called the stupid tax, so every time you guys say something stupid that makes you have too much damn money, we just get a percentage of it. And she was like, yeah, you're not gonna, I was like, no, you don't let me come to your board meetings. So, yeah, so no, we never did. Anybody, any other questions?
Wow. What is the one, if there's one lesson you could take from this, what is the one thing that you know now about the project that you wish you would have known from the very beginning?
That's a good question. I mean, obviously, I wish I'd known from the beginning how difficult financing would be. I sort of had a loose idea, but couldn't have understood at that time how bad it was. I think it's getting a little bit better with the Detroit Home Loan Program, but as far as I know, no loans have closed through it yet, so we're still in a waiting period to know if that's actually going to change anything. The last program that they created through with the NACA loans didn't work because it was addressing credit and mortgages when the real problem's appraisals, so we'll see. So I wish I'd known how hard financing would be, and if I had known, I don't want to say we wouldn't have done it if I knew it was going to be $400,000, but we might not have done it if we knew it was going to be $400,000. Yeah. But how many times, I feel like at the same time, how many amazing things have come in our lives that if you knew what it was really going to look like in the beginning, you would have never jumped. And so I feel like I've moved around my life a lot. I've lived in Denver, I've lived in Colorado Springs, I've lived in Manhattan, I've lived in Jackson, Mississippi, I've moved back to Denver, Brooklyn, and now Ann Arbor, and now Detroit. And every time I've done it, I've just had to leap and then look. If I really thought about how much I hate change and how much I hate moving and giving up people, I would have been paralyzed with fear. And so if I actually knew what it was going into it, I would have been paralyzed with fear, and so I'm glad I didn't. Hire a good contractor if you don't have skills, or really get to know your neighbors and work on a project together and know that it's going to take time. And either like what's the trifecta? It can be fast, cheap, or fast, cheap, or good. You get 2 of the 3. So we wound up with good and fast-ish. Fast-ish. And so
fast?
So we bought in June of 2013, and the contractors left August of last year. 15. Yeah, so a couple years, and we still need gutters, we still need tuck pointing, we still need the porch rebuilt because we had to tear that down from termite damage. The garage is still collapsing in on itself, and we still need to paint, but I'm going to paint all 3,000 square feet of that house over the next 30 years.
All right.
The tuck pointing will be about $3,000. Gutters are about another, I think, the gutters tuck pointing all in is like $4,000, which I don't think is too bad. Painting, I got several quotes on painting, not from our contractors, and everybody for that size of a house is sitting right about $16,000. And I was like, I'm gonna get real good with a paintbrush. Because now we're talking about things that if I don't do it, it's about me being lazy, and I have a significant lazy streak, I won't lie. Painting that house seems horrible. But we're at a point where it's like, look, I can't just pay to make the problem go away. I don't have any money, and B, like, I am my father's daughter, and like at a certain point, my dad's gonna come and like have some words with me.
Dad, I'm painting.